Hello, and welcome back to How We Really Feel. This is one of my in-between reflective episodes, and I'm going to be reflecting on the episode that I had with Matt and Jane from United Spinal, where we were looking at trying to overcome systemic barriers when there are a lot of systemic barriers that are impacting your health and your ability to do things that are really important for you to do. This is a difficulty that comes up a lot for people who are impacted by health issues, not being able to do the things that are important to them because of symptoms, but also because of the systemic issues that get in the way, whether that's access to healthcare, whether that's accessibility out and about in public places, whether that's social stigma and more besides. So this was a really important episode to explore what is our scope for dealing with actual practical and social difficulties that exist, especially when we're feeling defeated and like we have little choice. To begin with, I'd like to reflect on this important distinction that came up in the episode between acceptance, often a dirty word in chronic illness, one that comes with lots of connotations of giving up all agency, and resignation. As we explored in this episode, acceptance actually is something that is active and empowering. It's something that allows us to identify what it is that we don't like but cannot change, to free us up to work with what we actually might have capacity to make change with or work around and work within our available capacity to enact some influence over. This is distinct from resignation, which is giving up, a hopelessness, a sense of there's nothing I can do, so I'm not going to try anything. It's really hard to find that balance. And as Matt reflected on in this episode, often we start at a place of resignation. And then if we're lucky and we have the right support and discover various tools and pieces of information and education that can help us to get to this point, we move towards a place of cultivating acceptance. And this is an important thing, that we don't flip a switch. I've come to accept this in one go. We move gradually from feeling resistant, having our difficult emotions about what's happening, facing all of these barriers, looking at what our options are, seeing what our options aren't, and then gradually being able to turn towards strategies that allow us to let go of what we can't change and strategies that allow us to work with what we can change. If you take the pressure off perfectly accepting, you find that it is such a dynamic process. Every little bit of action, absorbing of experience, processing, that all contributes to your cultivation of acceptance. It's not something that you should be expecting yourself to be able to get to straight away. There's a process. What also really stuck with me from what Matt said in the episode was resignation is not poor coping. It's a natural protective strategy. It's a hunkering down, a shutting down, a deactivating, because it is very physiologically and psychologically threatening to be faced with having no control or having much more limited control. In It's All in Your Body, I talk about that, how we've got lots of different safety needs, and one of them is control. Humans do need a degree of control to feel safe. And when we're confronted with being stripped of that, that is incredibly threatening. And so our brain has all sorts of ways to protect us from that. And one of them may very well be resignation, shutting down. As long as we allow ourselves to go through the process of grieving, of feeling stuck, of recognizing what's coming up in those moments, and then have a chance to start shifting things, then we can move things along. Then we don't remain stuck. But if we believe that this is only ever going to be it, that's when we start getting trapped. So it's so important that we have lots of opportunities to help move us along. And this was the other really important element from this episode. Both Matt and Jane talked about the importance of connection and community and coming together, this collective action and this collective processing and power that there is when we're amongst other people, when we have access to other people. Sometimes that's healthcare professionals, sometimes it's peers, sometimes it's loved ones, sometimes it's other people that we can't imagine we would encounter when we're stuck in that resignation phase. It is one of the most common things that I see in my clinical practice for people to completely withdraw when you're dealing with difficulties, when you're facing adversity. We have this sense of I need to hunker down, or I can't face seeing anybody or engaging with anybody. And this is okay for a while, and it's okay for this to come and go, but we do need those moments of trying to re-engage and trying to find the places and the people that will provide us with some kind of lifting and opportunity to shift perspective, find new tools, feel hopeful again, because it can't just all be on you as the individual. In fact, Matt was talking about this expectation of us feeling like in order to change things, to change systemic issues, for example, we need to storm the office and have lots of fire in our bellies and do drastic things, when actually a lot of the time it's joining with other people, doing something small. He made the example of just signing your name to a letter. Maybe that's a petition, maybe that's a letter that's going round to raise complaints or concerns. Maybe that's some other kind of collective action that's already going on. It doesn't always have to be all on you. And simply listening out and exploring opens up the opportunity to get involved with something rather than you having to power it up. It also means that you then get the opportunity to find that there are people in a similar situation to you. And there are people that are motivated to change things that you're going through, not just for you, but for the greater good. And that is an incredibly powerful experience. I think it's really important to recognize that feeling overburdened by the prospect of trying to make big shifts that are necessary to change your experience. So, for example, in the healthcare system, when there's a lack of availability of people to speak to, it can feel so unlikely that you're going to have any difference in that, and so hard to do anything to change that. And so that adds to a sense of being overburdened and overwhelmed. And of course, what we're looking for, rather than feeling overburdened, is feeling empowered. And so the antidote is just taking the added expectation off yourself, recognizing that small actions have a big impact and these small actions don't need to be taken alone. The last thing that I want to reflect on from this episode is a theme that's come up time and time again, and it's the theme around the power of the clinician in treating patients beyond their medical skill and prowess. It is the way in which they approach consultations. We heard in previous episodes with Steve, for example, that there was an assumption of what Steve would be able to do rather than any curious exploration around what he thought he could do. And in this episode, Matt shared, after years of being told what to do by his treating professionals, he was finally asked by his urologist, "What's not working for you?" It's these questions that really open up and assess where a person's at, what their preference is, what they think they're able to do, what they feel they're not able to do, that create this collaborative care, the collaborative care that is gold standard, that we know from all of the research is what should be happening, but unfortunately so rarely happens. And we know that there's time considerations, we know that there's funding issues, and that erodes the perfect circumstances and environments to do collaborative care. But my argument is that it doesn't take much to tweak a consultation to have exactly the same time and make it more collaborative. In this episode, Matt talked about just the power of that question, hey, what's not working for you? Giving power back, giving a space to reflect, and actually ultimately opening up options that then could be explored and change things substantially for him. One of my hopes for this podcast is that not only will it be listened to by the people that are affected with these health issues or other related health issues or unrelated health issues, but that healthcare professionals, allied healthcare professionals, people in caring professions who are treating patients and speaking with them regularly will be listening and recognizing the power of the consultation itself, in hearing your patient, in asking their opinion, in checking out the plan with them, in getting them to contribute to the plan in the first place. All of these things are massively important. In my work with Convatec, the sponsors of this podcast, we created some training for healthcare professionals. And one of the things that we wanted to address in this was the short amount of time that people often have to see patients, but the important elements that need to be present in order for a patient to feel heard and to be best supported when self-catheterizing. But I believe that this framework applies much broader. And it's really simple. The framework is ask, open up questions about how you're doing, what's happening, how is this fitting into your life, validate experiences. It's not just you that deals with this. This is really hard. This is something that commonly comes up. So reducing that sense of isolation, any self-blame that might be brewing, and also a sense of, oh, this person's seen this before, so there's things that can be done. And then empower. And that might be through collaborative care planning. It might be through signposting. It might be simply through reinforcing that the patient's already doing a really good job. So it's a framework that I really hope healthcare professionals absorb, internalize, and use on a regular basis. It can be done so quickly, and there's lots of examples as well on the free training website if you are interested in checking that out. I will include the links below. Thank you so much for joining me again. I hope you enjoyed this episode, these reflections, but do check out the main podcast where we got into all sorts of details about finding empowerment when it feels overwhelming.
Learned something today? Your brain hasn't finished with it yet. Research shows revisiting new information is all it takes for your brain to start connecting the dots on its own. So subscribe, listen again, and let it do its thing. Thanks again to our partners at Convatec Continence Care. Don't forget to check out the resources and references linked in the show notes. If you found this episode helpful, please consider rating and reviewing the podcast. It really helps to connect the podcast with those who will benefit most from it. This podcast was produced by Maya Sounds and Music.